For the purpose of this assignment, I will be playing the role of a social worker in the Girl Scouts Arizona Cactus Pine organization. As a social worker in this setting, my role is as a member of the social impact team. As part of this team, it will be my job to help female youth at risk populations. Girl Scouts Arizona Cactus Pine involves staff led programs in which I, as a team lead, will act as a support for the girls who go through the program, as well as develop the programs for the girls to participate in. In this scenario, I will be working with a 16-year-old client named Sarah. She has recently been referred to one of Girl Scout Arizona Cactus Pines programs after she was involved in some legal mishaps and sent to a detention center. Sarah was referred to this program once she was released from the detention center because she was previously a member of the Girl Scouts Club and had been involved in the organization. The referral was sent to the social impact team with the expectation that Sarah would be able to get back on track having gone through the program. In the initial intake, confidentiality was discussed with the client and was explained to Sarah that anything she said wouldn't be disclosed to anyone unless she expressed thoughts of serious harm or imminent threat to herself or others. During the first meeting was when introductions were made between the client and the social worker. A quick demographic background survey was filled out, and all the client's information was collected. The social worker was also able to speak with other agency staff to gain additional information about the client. Because the client is already enrolled in the agency services, just in a different program, the social worker was trying to find any information that would be helpful to have when the social worker was to meet with the client for a more in-depth meeting. The first scene that you will see will be the second meeting held between the social worker and the client. Alright. Hello, Sarah. Nice to see you today. How are you?
I'm alright.
So I know that you've usually worked with scout leaders in this program, but for this specific encounter, I'll be your team lead. So basically that means that I'm here to help you throughout the program, make sure that you're accomplishing the goals that you set for yourself. And so my job is basically to act as a support for you and help you with anything that you need and guide you throughout the program.
Okay, well, I don't really need guidance. I know what I want, I know what I need.
Alright, well, I was reading through your referral and I just wanted to get familiarized with it. But could you start off by telling me why you're here today?
Yeah, I got caught stealing clothes at Target, and they decided that I needed to go to Durango. It's really stupid because I'm not a criminal. I don't do bad things. I don't understand why I was put there.
It sounds like the incident that you're talking about was something that was out of character for you. I see that your reports from Durango say that you were red shirt throughout the whole program, so that really speaks highly of your character with just that alone.
Well, I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. I felt alone in there. I didn't have my friends. I couldn't go to parties. I didn't have my boyfriend. I didn't have my siblings or my mom. Everyone left me alone, like I wasn't even there at all.
So while you're at Durango, you had no one. Nobody was there to visit you or talk to you. You were unfamiliar with the setting and you felt that no one seemed to notice that it was difficult for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, my boyfriend broke up with me after that. I missed a lot of school and my grades slipped, and now I can't play soccer because I'm not passing my classes.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of things right now that are weighing you down. Would you be open to talking about some of those things more in depth?
I guess so.
Okay, well, I'd like to set up another time to meet with you so we can discuss these other areas that you're having trouble with. Before we leave, I'd like to give you a pamphlet for one of our programs. It's a great program that's offered. It's after school. You'd be able to meet other girls that have the same background as you, in the same around the same age. So, would you be interested in something like this?
I'll look at it. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks. During the scene, the social worker first established what their role would be within their professional relationship. The social worker did this by explaining the job duties and tasks that would be performed throughout their work together. Once starting to talk to the client, the social worker was able to use the resistance that the client was expressing to redirect the client and give her control of the situation. The social worker did that by asking the client what she would like to talk about and focus on during this meeting. This gave the client an opportunity to choose what topics she wanted to discuss rather than the social worker telling her what she needs help with. The social worker was able to identify strength of a client and use that to show a different perspective on the situation. The social worker identified that the client was commended on her good behavior while in the detention center, which shows that she's determined to do better, and used that to make the situation positive instead of focusing on the negative, which was the client being put into the detention center. When the client was speaking, the social worker was able to paraphrase her words and clarify if she understood what the client was saying. This was used to get an understanding of what the client was saying and to make sure that the social worker is on the same page as the client. The social worker also validated the client's feelings by expressing that the client is dealing with multiple things all at once. This allows for the client to feel heard and make it easier for the client to feel that someone understands them and that they aren't being ignored. The social worker also provided the client with an opportunity to make her own decisions. She did this by giving the client information about a program and expressed that it was an option, but still left it up to the client to decide to make her own choice. The next scene you will see will be the follow-up meeting that took place between the social worker and the client 2 weeks later. Good morning, Sarah. I'm glad to see that you came back in. How are you?
I'm okay. It's been down my back about joining this program. She thinks that my behavior is out of line. She doesn't want to see me make the same mistakes as before.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean when your mom says your behavior?
Well, she got mad because I leave the house and I stay out late. She says I have an attitude, and then we always just end up fighting about everything.
Okay, well, last time we talked, you mentioned some things that were a struggle for you. You mentioned that while in Durango, you broke up with your boyfriend, your grades were slipping, which prevented you from playing soccer. Those are both serious events that seem to be affecting you. Would you like to start with these concerns?
I don't know. I miss soccer a lot. I'm really good at it too, but all because my grades suck, I can't play.
Well, have you ever thought about getting help for your grades? Maybe something like going to tutoring?
Tutoring is for dumb people, and I'm not dumb.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Tutoring offers the students the ability to have one-on-one attention. It gives you more time to focus on specific topics and you get a better understanding of the material. You know, I once went to tutoring when I was in school. Math was really a hard subject for me, but having gone to it really helped me with my grades. It even allowed me to play sports once I got to high school as well.
Well, I guess I never really thought about it like that. I do need help. I just don't understand what the teachers are talking about.
Alright, well, I have information here about a program that offers tutoring called Going Ivy. Here that will provide you with tutoring, preparation for testing, and even college preparation in the future if that's something that interests you.
Alright, thank you.
I also wanted to mention that the pamphlet that I gave you about Girl Scouts program last meeting we had offers extracurricular sports as well. So while you're working on improving your grades, you'd still be able to practice your skills and keep up with soccer. Like I mentioned before, it is after school, so they will transport you to and from the program and also provide you dinner while you're there. It's just something to think about.
Okay, that'll be pretty cool.
Alright, well, I think that was a lot of information for you to take in. How about you go home and think about it? We have some really great resources out here for you, and I think you'd really like some of them.
Okay, I can do that.
Alright, sounds great. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me and see what the program is all about, and I hope that you stay in touch. Here's my business card if you have any further questions or concerns.
Thank you, I'll definitely reach out.
In this scene, the social worker started off by thanking the client for showing up to the appointment to see her. This is a way of the social worker building rapport with the client. It is showing that the social worker cares about the client and is excited to have the chance to work with the client further. Once the discussion started, the social worker asked the client to clarify a statement she had said. This was used to make sure that the social worker understood what the client was saying. There can be miscommunication or a misunderstanding, so the social worker was using a clarifying question to gain more knowledge on what the client meant by her statement. The social worker also summarized the events of the last meeting and provided the client with a recap. This was used to remind the client of the previous discussion they had had, as well as leave the conversation open to the client so that she could choose which topic she would like to discuss. The social worker was able to self-disclose a personal story which offered a bonding moment with the client. This was done to show the client that everyone has struggles and that she is not going through them alone. This can also be done to develop a stronger relationship with the client because it makes them feel more relaxed and open to talking with you. The social worker gave the client a resource to help her with one of the issues that she identified as a problem. This information was sought out by the social worker outside of the meeting she had with the client. The social worker consulted with her supervisor to see what resources could be appropriate for the client. Going Ivy was a community resource that both the social worker and supervisor agreed would be beneficial for the client to use. At the end of the scene, the social worker thanked the client for their participation and willingness to be involved. This was done to recognize the client's strength. The client is wanting to change and coming to get resources and help on her own. It is also done so that the client feels welcomed and feels that they can come back to receive additional help. The intervention plan designed for the client would be the after-school program. This intervention will be used because it allows the client to work on her athletic skills, which is a very big part of her everyday life. It would give her the interaction with other youth like her so that she could become more comfortable with her situation and that she isn't the only one dealing with difficulties. The program would also give the client the opportunity to become free of distractions. It would be a great way for her to spend her free time doing something productive. This intervention plan would be developed between the client and the social worker to best fit the needs of the client. Once the client started participating in the program, there would be monthly check-ins with the team lead, which would be the social worker. These check-ins would be done to ensure that the program is effective and the client is accomplishing their goals within the program.